Hey y'all, Laura, Peaks for Pounds. I am out here, Skidaway Island State Park, Savannah, Georgia, doing a little hike. It's been 1 week since Hurricane Helene came through, and I wanted to check out trail conditions and report them back to you because I had a lot of folks reaching out to me to see what it's like down here in the Savannah area, how the trails are, how the town is, and what damage might have happened because you're planning on taking a vacation down this way. So I wanted to check out the park and let's see what we can see. This park, y'all, is located right on the marsh. It's a very marshy trails, sandy trails. You can see all the palm trees, all the brush around us. And a lot of times in these storms, we get flooded out because of the tidal system. The hurricane comes through and the tides rise and storm surge is usually what happens. This past Hurricane Helene last week, what we've experienced mostly is wind damage. I live just south of Savannah, about 35 miles south. Jamie, my mom, and I, a town called Richmond Hill. Lovely town, wonderful town. And what we experienced was mostly wind damage. A lot of trees down, power outages. Not so much the flooding this time. But with that being said, these old trees, especially when you talk the oaks, the old live oaks or the water oaks, they can do a lot of damage. And that's what we found in our area. So we'll take a little walk here. This is the Big Ferry Trail. And we'll see what the conditions are. There's a couple walkway crossing bridges that you go over the marsh. And we'll see the conditions of them. A lot of times they'll close these trails when the water gets too high because of those bridges. A lot of times they get washed out. So we'll see if we can see any of that today. Beautiful day, mid-70s. It is humid, it is muggy, but we'll take it. Can't ask for a better day to be out here checking this out. These old pines, y'all, are what you got to worry about here. These trees are massive and shallow rooted for the most part. So this one here looks like it's damaged. It's damaged probably before the storm, but you see a lot of these trees like this down in this park after storms. These are the beautiful live oaks that we have down here in this area. The famous Spanish moss. It's absolutely beautiful. Some of these trees are, gosh, 150, 200 years old or even more. They're pretty sturdy. They're pretty resistant to hurricanes, but every now and then we'll lose one, unfortunately. And we've got a precarious tree here hanging over the trail. And you see up here, the widowmaker. I'm not going to get too close to that. Hanging down. There's a lot of that. We've got a lot of that in our backyard. Trees look fine, then you look up and you see some major branches hanging down. So this will be quite common out here as well on Skidaway. This little trail here that branches off to the left is the connector trail between the Big Ferry trail and the Sandpiper and Avion loop. Now, there's been a bridge out on the Sandpiper Trail, the very first bridge after the visitor center. It's been closed for a hot minute. It's been down. Wasn't due to this most recent Hurricane Helene. It's been down, I want to say, for at least a year. Just spoke to a park ranger and she said they had plans on having a crew out to start repairing that next week. So we shall see. We're going to stick with the Big Ferry Trail. There's around 6 miles, about 6 miles of trails total out here on Skidaway Island State Park. It's pretty much my go-to place for hiking in this area. There's not a lot of options. You know, we're down here in the low country, coastal Georgia, pretty much sea level. At my house, we are 27 feet elevation. Kind of hard to train for the mountains. But I hike out here quite a bit. So I always like to check the conditions after a storm, because you never know what you're going to find from washouts, wind damage, which, like I said, is the biggest thing that we had with Hurricane Helene most recently. It's a beautiful state park. They offer camping, RVs, tents. I think they have a couple cottages, yurts as well. I think I've read they had yurts. I'll put a link to the website in the description. But it's a beautiful park, and a lot of folks will come to here in the winter because of our mild temps. Wanting to escape the north. I know how that is. I used to live in Michigan, y'all. But it's a beautiful area. It is considered Savannah. You're probably maybe 15 minutes to the downtown historic area of Savannah, Georgia, and maybe 40 minutes, 45 at the most, out to Tybee Island, which is a real popular area for folks coming to check out the beach. Tybee Island's great. As far as the downtown part of Savannah, no major damage from this storm. Tybee Island is looking good. Everything looks good around here. Other than out in some of the suburbs like Richmond Hill, where I live, folks did experience a lot of downed trees, damage from that, trees on houses, that kind of thing. But not the flooding that we usually get with a hurricane. It unfortunately headed north, and the northern parts of Georgia, central western Georgia, had more effect, and certainly western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee suffered the brunt of that. As you know, Damascus, Virginia as well. And ironically, several places along the Appalachian Trail, once you get into North Carolina. Our thoughts and prayers go out to those folks. We were much more fortunate with this recent storm. But let's continue to check this out. Big Ferry Trail, Skidaway Island State Park. This is one of those boardwalks I was mentioning, and you can see the water's pretty high. It might be about 8 inches below the deck here, and this is all from the tide. As the tide comes in and out, these waters will rise and recede. And as you can imagine, during a storm, tropical storm, hurricane, that water, those winds come in. Our biggest damage in places like this are these storm surges and flooding. But it doesn't appear to be any damage here on this boardwalk. And so far, so good. Looks like I spoke too soon. We've got a down tree here. Again, this is the Big Ferry Loop. It's like a small path to go around, so I'm not sure how long this has been down. It doesn't look like it's been down very long. I would venture to say that this was caused by the hurricane. The break in the tree stump up here looks fairly new. Yeah. This is actually a branch. I would guess that it came off of that tree right there. Would be my guess anyway. which looks like another oak. The park ranger I spoke with just as I was starting this little hike said that they are severely understaffed, and in situations like this after a storm, they would gladly accept volunteers to help with cleanup. So if any of y'all are watching here in the Savannah area and you care to lend a hand to the parks system, they said just to show up, give them a call, or show up at the park office here at Skidaway Island and they'll get you set up. So there's a lot of maintenance that goes into play for parks such as this. It's like another tree leaning over. You can see it behind me, leaning over the trail. You got to really keep an eye out for stuff overhead. That one looks like it's nestled in a tree. Here, I'll flip it around, show it to you. Let me flip it around. It fell, but it's being held up by another tree. But that won't last for long. That'll eventually give. I've got a situation like that in my backyard right now, where a tree on the neighbor's property has fallen over and it's being supported by a tree on my property. So we've got to get that taken care of. But this one here is going to need some attention. No sooner did I mention that small tree being held up by another tree, and I come upon this much bigger blowdown. This is a pine, and it's on its way down, and it's being supported by, in the little nook of that branch there on that oak tree. So this one here looks pretty dangerous. It's probably not smart of me to walk past that, but I'm going to take a chance and go rather quickly. Don't try this at home, folks. This is not wise. Do not follow my example. Yeah, that branch is not very big to hold this massive pine. That was pretty stupid of me. But I wanted to report on trail conditions for y'all, and if I come across another one of those, I ain't gonna do it. There's another tree. This one also looks like it's recently fallen with a storm. Another oak. Some of these trees have really deep root systems and others are pretty shallow. I think, and y'all can leave a comment because I'm not an expert on forestry, but I think the pines are rather shallow rooted, and same with water oak. I'm not sure about the oak, but I think that's the case. The live oak, as sturdy as they are, I think they'd have stronger root system. But again, I don't know. If there's anybody out there with more knowledge, please leave a comment. So our ecosystem is beautiful down here, y'all, in South Georgia. It's just tropical, like muggy. Can't tell you how many mosquitoes are hitching a ride on the back of my legs right now. I've got on plenty of DEET, but I have got hitchhikers. There's a pretty good sized widowmaker here on this pine. And it's almost exactly situated above this little bench. So if you come out here, don't sit on this bench without looking up. I know y'all are curious about that liquor still thing, so let's go check it out. Looks like that pine's coming down. These pines are massive. I am going to be very careful and steer clear of that. But let's Let's see if we can see this this liquor still area. If it's not underneath that pine, I'm going to show it to you. Back during Prohibition, this area here was a hot spot for bootlegging, making shine, making illegal booze, and run it. Rum running is what they would call them, rum runners. And one of the reasons why it was so popular is because of the easy access to the marsh and the tributaries, and being able to take booze through the channels around here up into Savannah, all the way up into Charleston. And so these are remnants of old stills. Pretty much just look like old 55-gallon drums. That's pretty much what they were, but they would make moonshine out here on Skidaway Island. One thing about Savannah, y'all, it has never been dry. I promise you that. It is spooky looking through here. All the Spanish moss hanging down, falling down. Word of caution, if you're visiting Savannah and you're intrigued by this stuff, do not pick it up. Do not touch it. Do not try to take it home. It is full of bugs. It is the nastiest stuff ever. But it's charming. It's eerily quiet out here, y'all. Now and then you might hear a bird or a squirrel, but it's quiet. Oh, it's a big pine tree back there. Looks like it's about to fall as well. There's a lot of hidden dangers out here is what I'm seeing. At first glance, you say, it's not so bad, but there's a lot of stuff that's hanging down, branches, widowmakers, a lot of big trees that look like they're about to fall. So I'd definitely say this is a hike at your own risk. They're doing a good job trying to get it under control, trying to get places cleaned up in these parks. But like I said earlier, they are so understaffed. But they're taking volunteers. This is as much mud as I've seen. Hardly anything in terms of flooding or mud out here on the trail. It's mostly wind damage, blowdowns, branches down, debris, that kind of stuff. Well, y'all, that's a wrap. Skidaway Island State Park, post-Hurricane Helene. Hope this gives you an idea of what trail conditions are like and what the overall park is like if you're planning to visit Savannah, which I'd encourage you, if you make it down this way, come visit this park. It's absolutely beautiful. Right here on the marsh, as you see behind me, it's a very diverse ecosystem. This will give you a good idea what the low country, coastal Georgia, South Carolina, northern Florida is all about. It's beautiful, it's buggy, it's hot, it's muggy. I would recommend maybe December, January trip. But if you do come when it's warm and hot, make sure you bring some bug spray. Skidaway Island State Park, y'all. Make sure you add that to your next visit list for Savannah, Georgia. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you see in this video and you want to follow the rest of my adventures, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Until next time, stick with me. I'm going somewhere.